Renowned remote viewer, investigator, and author Margie K. presents Unexplained Phenomena, Hauntings, Cryptids, Portals, Alien and Interdimensional Contact, Shifts in Consciousness, and all things unexplained. And now, here is your host, Margie K.
Hello and welcome to the program. Thank you for joining me. Tonight, we're going to step away from the norm a bit and discuss a topic that many people shy away from. Death is something we will all eventually face, but our society programs us to fear it. We're going to be speaking with someone who knows about death and can explain how we really have no reason to fear death. Tony Christie is a messenger of oneness, a mystic and spiritual teacher. He brings messages and teachings of oneness through his healing and teaching work. He left his senior management job in the Irish Public Service to follow his heart in the area of energy healing and sharing new information and energies that he is accessing on higher dimensions. He is the founder of a new healing modality based on the labyrinth called Melchizedek Labyrinth Healing. He accesses non-vibrational energetic devices known as golden sphere energetics to share with humanity. Tony is the author of the books Labyrinth, Your Path to Self-Discovery, and the Book of Nothing and Everything, and the creator of the Labyrinth Wisdom Cards. Tony is a lifetime member of the Labyrinth Society, a qualified reflexologist, Reiki master, advanced Psi-K facilitator, a certified space clearing practitioner, and a practitioner of Kriya Yoga. Today, we're going to talk about death and Tony's book, Death, You Gotta Love It. Welcome to the program, Tony.
Hi, Margie. Thank you very much for having me, and hello to everybody listening and watching.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, especially since it's very, very late at night in Ireland right now.
Yeah, it's 11 p.m. at night in Ireland, so if you can see a bit of darkness here behind me, that's the nighttime.
Okay. Well, you have several books under your belt, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. Tonight, we're going to talk about death, and there are just a lot of different ideas about death. Some people are afraid of it. Some people are not afraid of it. First of all, though, how did you get interested in the subject matter?
It goes back 10 or 15 years. One morning I was meditating and the thought of contemplating my death just popped in. And I sometimes with thoughts, I let them come and go, but this one just wouldn't leave. So I ended up initially being quite afraid and a bit wary of going down that road of exploring death. But I found that the more I've learned about it and the more I said, immerse myself in the different aspects of death, the less I became to fear it, and so I eventually transitioned to a place of loving death, finding that I was in everyday life, I was either in a place of love or a place of fear, either in my thoughts or my speaking or my actions. And so I began to apply that to whatever situation I was in, and to also when I was applying it to my forthcoming death, whenever that will be. And I've switched or flipped the script really from death being one of fear, being one of love, and that it is a moment of immense, beautiful transition for us. And so when you realize and explore and educate yourself about death and life, there's nothing there to be feared. That's just my discovery or my exploration. And it resonates with or reverberates with people who have had near-death experiences, people who have explored out-of-body experiences, that they're coming back and saying, they're no longer afraid of death, that they know that there is that life continues, that death is not life and death, it's life before death, life after death. And so they're not opposites. It's like death is just one moment of transition in our continuous life that we are.
We've already got a question, so I'm going to pop it up because I was going to ask this very thing. Is death similar to astral travel?
Well, yes, it can be, because a lot of the sort of the well-known astral travelers and people who have out-of-body experiences, they have visited the what they would call the afterlife realms, or what I call the hereafter realms. And so, depending on how proficient you are at astral travel, if you can direct where you wish to go, or if you can set the intention that you wish to go to the hereafter realms, well then, yes, you will experience them. And a lot of the information in Death, You Gotta Love It, is from people who have explored, through astral travel and out-of-body experiences, the realms of the hereafter, whether it is Robert Monroe, the Monroe Institute, or Richard Bullman, or some of these other people, that they have brought back a huge amount of information and met people in many of the different aspects or the different dimensions of the hereafter. So yes, astral travel is one of the ways of training for your death, or exploring the realms of the hereafter.
There are some people who are very, very afraid of the death process. And then there are others who have no fear whatsoever. But it seems that those people have had experiences, like you mentioned, with out-of-body, near-death experiences, things like that, because they have had a taste of what it's like on the other side, and it's quite pleasant, isn't it?
Yes, and I mean, I did ask myself at times, I haven't had a near-death experience, so in some ways, or I haven't worked with, in hospices, or worked with the dying, so in some ways I kept asking myself, why me? And but every time I have a number of books in my head, some written already, and a number of other ones half written or in the process of writing them. But every time I tuned in or meditated on what book am I to finish next, it was always due to Death's book. It was like I couldn't go on or progress until I got all this information that I had gathered and found and explored myself in relation to death. So it was almost as if it was me to write it, because I didn't have this near-death experience, so that people can't say, oh, it's easy for you, you know what it's like on the other side. I'm not one of those. I started off in a place of fear and have many different fears, and there are many different aspects of fears around death. But through the process of finding out about it and facing my fears, and I went through that phase in my life where whatever fears or qualms or anxieties I had, I would always explore and face them. And so through facing the fears, or even through deciding to face your fears, if you decide, you have some fear of death, there are many different aspects that it might be. It might be a fear of judgment in the hereafter. It might be a fear of leaving loved ones behind. It might be a fear of, I don't know, is there anything there? Even, a fear of annihilation or whatever we put on it. So if, first of all, and what we group is the fear of death is a collective of all these other smaller fears. And so one of them will be more dominant in most people than another. So if you can figure out which of the smaller fears of death gives you rise to your big one, well, then you can start educating yourself about it. Because as I've already said, it's not life and death. There's life before we're born, there's life here now, and there's life after we die, or after the body dies, because we don't die, we continue on.
You suggest that death isn't an ending but a transition. So when we die, where exactly are we transitioning to, and is it the same place for everyone?
It's not the same place for everyone. So if you transition to where you expect or believe that you'll transition to. So it's like that. It's that cliche coming to true, in that your thoughts create your reality. So if you think you will go and experience the traditional heaven with angels and beautiful people and lovely peaceful place and everything wonderful, well, then that's what you will experience. On the other hand, if you believe that there is nothing there, that's what you will initially experience also. So depending on what your thoughts are about death, is partly determining what you will experience or where you will go. But if you have explored death, and if you have explored or learned about the different realms or different layers or different dimensions that there are to be experienced, well, then one of those may be more appealing to you than another. So it's not the same for everybody, but there is some place that each one of us will transition to. And if you wish to meet loved ones, well, that will also happen. So it depends on what you're expecting or what you have planned. But many of us, many people don't plan their death or what they expect would like to experience afterwards. There's, in my view, there's too much left to chance as to where we'll go or what will happen when we leave the physical body. It's almost as if, you're expected to know what to do. It's like if you were landed or sent on a plane to some foreign country, and you knew you were going, but yet you never learned anything about it, or never learned the language or a few phrases to get along, or brought the right currency so that you could survive there. And it's similar with many people in relation to death. We tend to avoid it and hope it'll go away, but it's something that we're all going to experience. And but yet for some reason, society as a whole, and maybe over the years, society as a whole tends to avoid it. Predominantly, people tend to avoid death until it happens or until it's staring us in the face. And then sometimes people will go and look and explore it a little bit. But you can prepare for your death, and you can influence a lot more in relation to your death, and particularly in relation to when you leave the physical body, where you will go and what you will experience. But yet, again, many people just, I would say, put their head in the sand, but basically that's, metaphorically what they're doing.
So basically, you're saying that we create our own reality when we cross over, which means we probably are creating our own reality now while our body's alive, right?
Yeah, definitely, exactly. Now, again, because this is what we would call a denser, realm or denser environment where things don't happen, as quick, where joining together our thoughts with the outcome of them can take days, months, or years, depending on how good or not you are at manifesting. But oftentimes when you look back over your life and you will find that where you are now is the result of decisions or thoughts or actions that you put in place in the past. And so when you leave the physical body and enter the realms of the hereafter, the time dimension no longer is there. So your thoughts manifest immediately. And so depending on what state of mind you're in or what practice you have over, manifesting your thoughts or deciding what thoughts you wish to have, so a lot of the, in the Buddhist tradition, there's talks of, people seeing demons and, not so pleasant creatures, or experiences or devils or whatever they're called. But that's mainly a representation of their fears on some level. So the journey here for me and in Death You Gotta Love It is to move from whatever fears you have to one of love, to face all your fears so that you're no longer carrying fears, or you're carrying lesser fears or fewer fears, and that you're in a place of love, so that when you shift or when you leave the physical body, that you will be able to hold the higher vibration of love. And so that's what you'll start experiencing as soon as you transition into the next realms of the hereafter, and then being able to hold that or decide what it is that you want to experience or what it is that you want to do when you're there.
I know several people who have had experiences with their elderly parents or themselves approaching, an older age, being so afraid of dying and what's going to happen after that death, that they have returned to an old religious beliefs, that they changed their minds at some point when they became an adult, and then towards the end they go back to that. Why do you think people do that?
I think people are looking for comfort or reassurance, or they're looking for something to alleviate their fears. So if somebody is promising them something, that resonates with them, or where they're at that moment, well, then that is a belief that they will take on board and own for themselves. So if there's a promise of, a heavenly, a pleasant heavenly hereafter in any particular religion, well, then that can be very attractive to people, particularly if it's a fearful state of death. So if the teachings of a particular religion or tradition are that, that when you die, if you follow these rules here on earth, or if you follow our belief system, that everything will be okay when you die, well, then why would not some people, opt for that way of belief and for that way of thinking? But yet, when in the overall, in my examination of death, the flow of life from, and in death, you got to love it, I start with, children who remember choosing their parents when they were in the spirit world, some of them saying being with God and deciding what parents they would have, from children, then people who have had past life experiences. So it's the theme running through Death, You Gotta Love It, is that life is a continuation before we come here, while we're here, and after we leave here. And so the other theme running through it is that you have a lot more control and influence over not only what happens here, but what happens afterwards. And even there are people, and I have accounts of them in Death, You Gotta Love It, where they can influence and control their moment of death. So there are some advanced teachers, for example, as a Lahiri Mahasaya, an Indian guru he'd be known as, and he, towards the end of his physical life, one day he said, "I'm going home." And he stood up, turned around 3 times, sat down in the lotus, the cross-legged position, and left his body. And there are lots of different accounts and similar accounts in Death, You Gotta Love It, of people who are advanced enough to know when either that they had been in and out of the body in their everyday life, like astral travel or out-of-body experiences, but at a certain time they decide, and some of them have announced in advance, okay, when they're going to leave the body or when they're going to die. So my understanding and belief is that ability is available to all of us if we practice it, or if we are disciplined enough to be able to raise our consciousness or awareness in our everyday life or in meditation to a higher vibrational state. And now I haven't reached it myself yet, but I'm open to the possibility of knowing when my time will come. There's a quote, and maybe it's from the Bible, I'm not sure, you'll neither know the time nor the hour, or the day nor the hour of your death. But that has been disproven by some of the people who have actually said and announced when they were going to die, and have left the body at the appointed time. So I think
I could see that with astral travelers, people who are used to out of the body experiences, and then just deciding they're not going back.
Yeah, I haven't come across any of those, but if I would imagine there are some, and that's and depending on, in the Western tradition, it's probably out of body travel, we call it, or the astral travel. In the Eastern, the Indian Hindu tradition, it's nirvikalpa samadhi, where they get to a space, where the body, the consciousness leaves the body for as long as they choose for it to leave the body, and they will go into different, states of consciousness and awareness. And by doing that on a regular basis, they can decide at the end of life or when they wish to choose to leave the body. So if some people can do it, the opportunity is there for everybody eventually. And I think that's where humanity is moving, that You Gotta Love It, part of it is about the transformation of human consciousness to become aware of how powerful creators that we are, rather than having someone impose, what happens to us on us, that we can influence a lot more what happens here on this life, in this earth, and also what happens afterwards.
Indeed. There's a powerful idea in your book, Death, You Gotta Love It, that we don't die alone. So who or what is there waiting for us when we cross the threshold? Is there anything waiting on the other side that would completely shock even the most spiritual person?
There's a couple of questions there. So we don't live alone, even if you're on your own. That you have guides or angels or whatever spiritual beings with you, supporting you in your journey through this earthly realm. Now, in That You God Loved, I write about, in some cases, deathbed visions where people actually start seeing their loved ones, oftentimes up in the top left-hand corner of the room, or people will sit on the bed. There's one account of an Irish priest whose father was dying, and his father sat up in the bed and started shaking hands with people and naming them. He was shaking hands with his brothers who were deceased. And so he was genuinely seeing through the veil, or through that the people, his loved ones or his deceased brothers and relatives, were coming to assist him in crossing over. And there's a lot of similar cases like that, And there's even one that I write about where this lady, she was dying after childbirth. This is back in the early 1900s. She was after giving childbirth, and she was quite ill, and there were doctors and nurses by her bedside. And she started seeing, I can see father, and he's coming. And she named her father and an uncle. But she also named her sister. And she was puzzled because she wasn't aware that her sister had died. And she said, what's she doing there? But it had turned out that the sister had died about 2 weeks previously. But because this lady was so ill herself, her family had never told her that her sister had died. So it couldn't be just accounted for by the mind or hallucinations, that she was actually seeing again through the veil, and her loved ones, her sister and father and some other family members, were coming to help her to cross over. So either whoever you need, or who will best comfort you or reassure you in the moment for you crossing over, that's who will be there to meet you and to help you. So it may be a family member, but it also may be a spiritual guide, or your guardian angel, if you believe in the guardian angels, that there will be some spiritual being, or some being who is in the spirit world or a spirit dimension, who will be there helping you and supporting you cross over. So, but they're also here helping us here and now. So if you're looking for help here and now, you can call on your spiritual guide or your angels, or even your deceased loved ones, because they tend to be watching over us, to see how we're doing. And if you think of them, and if you've lost someone recently, or somebody who has died belonging to you recently, more than likely when you think of them, you're connecting energetically with them, and they're aware of it. So,
yeah, I agree with that completely. I have seen that myself several times with people who were getting ready to cross over, and their loved ones come in close, and I see them coming in close to the person. So I know what they see. And I think it's probably true for everybody that their loved ones who have crossed over do come to help them cross over and let them know that it's okay.
Yes. Yeah, and you never die. That's the message really for anyone who's listening, or anyone who may be fearful of dying alone. You never die alone. There's always somebody there helping you and supporting you, and maybe you'll be doing the same for others when it's their turn.
I think that's a comforting thought that people need to keep in mind who have been unable to be with their loved ones when they crossed over, especially like during COVID, when everybody was isolated, and they'd have loved ones in the hospital. They weren't allowed to go see them. So that's a good thought to keep.
Yeah. And that was very difficult for people during COVID, so, but then on the other hand, there are people that you hear stories of when the family around, or your loved one or a wife or husband leaves to go to the bathroom or get something to eat. And it's that moment that the person decides to leave their body, that sometimes they find it difficult when there's family members around, who are maybe, willing them to hold on, or they don't, they can feel the need for them not to leave the body. So sometimes leaving the body, it's almost like we need to give permission sometimes for people to leave, that it's okay, that but that's when you have the understanding that you are not the physical body, or I'm not this physical body, that you are the energy that animates the body, or the life force that that gives life to the body. So it's one of the teachings, or death teachings in Death You Gotta Love It, is that we are not the physical body. It's like an earth suit, or it's like this suit of clothes that we put on with sight and hearing and smell and taste and touch, so that we can experience all that needs to be experienced and in this earthly realm. And then when it has served its purpose, or when it has got old and is no longer functioning properly, we decide that we leave it, And so it's one of the, for me, now, the knowing that I'm not this body, and knowing that the experience that I've had outside of the body and in meditation and into consciousness levels, that it becomes very clear. But you can train for that. You can train through your dreams, or through meditation, or through, getting into light trance. So whatever way appeals to you, you can train and learn to be able to access different states of awareness or consciousness now while you have a physical body, so that when the time comes for you to leave the physical body, it'll be a lot easier for you to do that.
Indeed. Good messages all the way around. We're speaking with Tony Christie this evening about his book, Death You Gotta Love It, and we will be back right after these messages. Have you ever wondered what messages starseeds are receiving from their star families? The Unexplained Network and Oz Institute are pleased to announce the Conscious Contact Virtual Conference, June 20th, 2026. Join us to hear messages from the Pleiadians, Arcturians, Venusians, and more with Lily Nova, Isha Patel, Dr. Raymond Keller, April Cordner, and Margie Kay. These experienced contactees will share what they have learned from the benevolent beings who are assisting Earth people to raise their consciousness. Visit unxnetwork.com for more information and to register. That's unxnetwork.com. Unx Media is pleased to offer 2 books by Dr. Gregory Rogers, former NASA flight surgeon. Impact is an account of the Space Shuttle program in 1992 and the tragedy that occurred even after NASA management had been warned about the damage to the thermal protection system. And in We Got It From Them, Dr. Rogers explains how humanity received ET technology. Both books are receiving much attention by the media. Visit unxmedia.com, that's unxmedia.com for more information, or go to amazon.com to purchase your copies today. And we're back. I'm Margie Kay, and this is the Margie Kay Show. So tonight we're talking about death, which is, I've talked about other subjects in the past, but not this one. So this is a first, and I appreciate you coming on, Tony, to discuss it. You talked about communication with the dead. Do you believe they are trying to reach us more than we realize, and we're simply not listening in the right way?
Definitely. I mean, there was a survey done in the US back in 2013, I think, of people, husbands and people who had lost a partner, husband or a wife, and there were a few thousand people surveyed in this. And approximately 75% of them said that after they had passed, that they convinced that they either appeared to them or that they got a very strong signal from them that they were letting them know that they were okay. So it might have been, a familiar object in a strange place, or, some interference with lights flashing, or their favorite song come on the radio, or that they could just, smell their scent or whatever that is, So without a doubt that our loved ones who have passed are looking to make contact with us in whatever way they can. And so, I mean, one of the, I suppose, the most common ways is through a medium, through a medium, people who have a greater ability maybe than the average person to access the different dimensions and different realms. But there are also ways that you can pursue yourself. And I write about that in Death You Gotta Love It, that there are techniques that I came across and learned. Some of them are, about your eye movement or tapping kind of movements, which bring you into a higher vibrational state, and that enables you to make direct contact with your loved ones. So it's not that you always have to rely on somebody else to make the contact, that you can make the contact yourself. And I'm convinced, I've no doubt, that when you hold them, the thought of them in your mind, that they are aware of that, and they will try, and they will be looking to make contact with you also. There's also this what's that called? Electric or electronic voice communication. So it basically is where people record a conversation, or the questions are asked of the deceased loved ones. And there's a lady called Sonia Rinaldi that I write about, and she does this mainly for children or parents who have lost children. And so she asked questions, of the child who is deceased, and it appears that there is nothing happening, no response. But when the recording is played back, the voice of the child or the deceased person very clearly can be heard on the tape recorder or on the recording. So those who are deceased are in an energy form, so they find it a lot easier to communicate through electronic or energetic type devices, rather than, it's easier because they have to be able to transmit. Most of the thoughts are telepathically, but the person receiving has to be able to receive, or be in a quiet enough space of mind to be able to receive that. So generally, if you're looking on your own to make connection with a loved one, well, it might be best to train in one of these. But if you allow yourself to get into a very quiet space, either through meditation, and hold the thought of that person, in your mind, and ask a question, but the response is going to be telepathic. So you will, depending on your ability, whether you may see if you're clairvoyant, or hear if you're clairaudient, but you may just get a sense of the person being around, and many people have, but there tends to be a reluctance in certain quarters among certain people to actually admit that, oh, I think my deceased husband, came to me during the night. Or oftentimes people who have passed come in dreams. So if you're dreaming about a loved one who has passed, that's them making contact with you when you are most open to receiving that contact, which is in a dream, because maybe in the everyday your mind is too busy, or you just don't believe that it's possible to make contact. But once you start making an conscious effort yourself to connect with the deceased loved one, they will almost always respond, and almost always the messages are that they're doing okay, they're doing fine, and they're even can be aware of how you're doing and what's happening in your life.
Well, let's talk about reincarnation for a minute, because obviously you're living and dying many times, going through that. Why would a person keep reincarnating? Why would they, let's say right now, why would they be in this lifetime at the moment?
Yeah, well, this existence, or this earthly realm, or whatever we call it, this sometimes I like to call it a training ground or an army assault course, because you get everything thrown at you. But it's really only people who are quite advanced in the evolution of their consciousness choose to come here, because it's a very what do we call it, tough, but it's a very rapid training ground. So we come here, but we decide in advance the experiences we're going to have. And I know people have got cross with me or annoyed with me when I've said this, why I would not choose that experience. But that understanding is from the human, consciousness, rather than the higher consciousness that we are. So I try and summarize the meaning of life in one or two sentences. I believe we are consciousness that is evolving and seeking to evolve. And so one of the best places where we can evolve our consciousness most rapidly is to come to Earth, to have all these experiences, to see if we can choose love. Because all the messages from people who have had death experiences, and from those who have, it's really, this life is about learning to love more, or choosing to love more. And that may seem strange when you see all the not so nice things that are happening. But one of the reasons that the title of the book is Death, You Gotta Love It, is because death for many people is one of the most difficult things to love. But you have to explore it. You have to examine and investigate the reason for death to bring yourself to a space where you can love it. No, I don't know how to answer your question, Margie. In the end, did I go off on a tangent? But what was the question?
That's perfectly fine, but I think you've answered the question. Yeah, because it's very trying. Life is very trying, and we all go through trauma and all types of experiences, good and bad. But I agree with you that we get a lot thrown at us. So it does seem like
it is.
We need to learn to deal with it.
Yeah, I mentioned Army Assault Course. It's like the equivalent of crawling through the mud and under barbed wire and up over greasy poles, that every possible thing and hazard that you might possibly meet, but you see, that's where reincarnation, it only makes sense. Whatever experiences you or anyone listening is having in your life, it only makes sense in the context of coming back any number of times, generally hundreds of times, I would imagine. So because that so that you can choose all the different experiences to have, whether in a male body, a female body, a healthy, able, disabled, what skin color you have, whether you're rich or poor, all the different roles that you can play and assume to play. All of these are options and choices that it's almost like a kid in a sweet shop, when you're up in the spirit world, I say, I love this and I love this and I love this. And then you come down here and you go, whoa, what was I thinking?
What did I sign up for?
Yeah. Give me the toughest experience, because we're choosing from a much higher state of awareness and consciousness. So we bring some of our awareness or consciousness down then to have these experiences, but we forget what our true essence is or who we truly are. And so we have to figure out as we go along how to maneuver our way through all the different traumas and the experiences, good, bad, and indifferent, that we're having here. But ultimately for me, it's learning or deciding to choose not to be in fear, but to choose to be in a space of love, to love ourselves and to start loving others and loving all of existence, because it really is that our higher consciousness is that leave the body at death. That's who we truly are. So what happens to the physical body, or whatever is happening in the physical body, is temporary, and it's for me, whatever's happening with me, for me to have these experiences. I'm just thinking of an example I was thinking of earlier. I went through a bout of fatigue, quite extreme fatigue, a number of 3 or 4 years ago, where I would be in bed for 12 or 14 hours and wake up more tired than when I went to sleep. And I would struggle to get out of bed, have something to eat, sit in the chair by the window, go back to bed for another 2 hours. I couldn't even walk the 100 yards down to the post box to check the post. And I think I managed to sit in meditation or kneel on the floor in meditation most mornings just for a few minutes. And one morning I was just so exhausted and tired, I put my head on the floor and says, lads, I don't know who I was talking to. If you want me to do this work, give me a body that I can do it in or do it with. Because I was ready to go. I had been exploring my death and saying, look, if the body isn't functioning, I'm ready to go. And thankfully, well, for the moment anyway, they decided, okay, Tony, or somebody decided, my higher consciousness decided, okay, we'll give you a little bit more energy so that you're not so tired. So wow, I don't know why did I tell that story?
That's an interesting story. It almost sounds like you had long COVID.
Yeah, it was very similar to that. No, I never got. Did I get COVID? I did, but I think it was after that.
Well, that's the thing. It's after the COVID that you have long COVID. That you have different symptoms. I mean, mine, I got it, but mine is vertigo.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. And again, why would we choose? Why would we choose to have these experiences in the body?
Right.
It forced me to be with myself, and there was one morning, I was lying in bed one morning and I was so exhausted for about 3 days. I couldn't even think. And this morning I had a slight bit of clarity, and I felt a bit restless, like I wanted to get up and do something, which seems strange. But there was rest. I tuned in. Did somebody say, or did the idea come in that where was the restlessness in my body? So I checked in with the body, and it was in my heart center, and that was a very strange place, I thought, for restlessness to be there. But then the thought of going right into that restlessness. So I sat or lay with the restlessness and went as deeper and deeper and deeper into it. And at the bottom of it, I found joy. There was an immense joy and love of life and love of everything. And since then, I work one-on-one at sometimes with people, energy healing and emotional healing, and working with them to help them step into their mastery. But I have found that oftentimes if you can decide to go to the center of whatever it is that is impacting on you mostly in your life, that ultimately at the bottom of that, there's joy. And I have taken people there, they have gone there with me, and they have found their joy underneath what seemed like an almost insurmountable situation in their life. So,
Wow.
life is it's wonderful when you get rid of all the troubly stuff on the surface.
Yeah, the junk.
Yeah.
Right. Fear seems to be at the center of how we view death. So who or what benefits from humanity being afraid of dying?
Fear is separation consciousness. It divides and keeps you from yourself, and it keeps you from getting in touch with the divine essence and beauty that you are yourself. So some people who will put out fear of death, it might be the life insurance companies, they wouldn't operate unless people had a fear. People had no fear of death. But there's also people who are, if they're into a them and us situation, that they will generally put out a fear that we're the good guys, they're the bad guys, so you need to be afraid of them. And so if you're in that duality way of thinking, that you can, a lot of people, politicians, obviously, for example, the political party, my political party, was better. Beware these other guys, because they'll put more taxes on you, or they'll raise the price of the gas or whatever. That there is a benefit for them to have people afraid of the other guys. And it can be the same whether it's a political party, whether it's a religion, whether it's whatever belief system it is that you have. So so there are people who benefit from the fear. Who benefits from us having a fear of death? I think the fear of death generally is a fear of many other smaller things. So as I said already, it can be a fear of the unknown. It can be a fear of not fulfilling your life purpose, or a fear of dying young, or leaving your loved ones. So again, there are some industries. The beauty industry is kind of basis is, I'm starting to look older. If you are starting to look older, you need to buy these products, because you can't look old, you can't have gray hair, or you can't have receding hairline, or you can't have wrinkles on your face, or you can't have, so you must buy our product, because people won't like you if you're looking this particular way. So there's lots of different people who can benefit from us being in a space of fear, but there's a lot more people who can benefit from us being in a space of love. And that's the theme running through That You Gotta Love It. It's about choosing love in life through the lens of death. So one of our greatest fears, humanity's greatest fears, is the fear of death. So if you can find and bring yourself to a place of even lesser fear, or shifting to a space of love of death, well, then you will also shift to a space of love of life. It's just it's a given. Yeah.
Well, you've really brought up a lot of things, a different way of thinking, for sure, that I wish this message could get out to everybody in some fashion, because there are just so many people, like you said earlier, they're going through life, they don't discuss death, they don't prepare for it, they don't want to think about it. and they don't. And then the time comes and, oh my gosh, what do they do? But what can people do to prepare ahead of time so that they're calm and relaxed when the moment comes?
Well, one of the first things to do with any fear is to decide that you're going to face it and you're going to investigate it and explore it. So, and you could do that through Death You Gotta Love It, or you can find other ways of learning about death, on YouTube videos, or watch more of your shows, Margie. So, number one, decide that you're going to take action. Once you start taking action about any fear, it starts to diminish. For me, it's half the battle. To make that decision that you're going to face whatever fear that is. Now, the way you can reduce the fear is to learn about it. Because in Death You Gotta Love It, when you read through it all, you will find that there are so many different aspects or new to people who haven't explored the death realms before, that it's not this fearful annihilation or the fearful. It's not something to be feared. It's actually something to be seen as this beautiful transition. That death. You see, humanity or humankind up to now has portrayed death as this black hooded figure with a skeletal figure with a big side that's coming to cut short your life or whatever it is. But nobody dies before their time. And for me, death is more like a motherly midwife type loving person who holds you in their arms to help you to transition. And that's the theme running through Death You Gotta Love It, where instead of being afraid of death, that you inform yourself about all the different things that can happen. And even if you're dying in bed, educate yourself how the physical body slows down and what happens and what the bodily functions can feel like, but body sensations can feel like, but also mentally and energetically also, that there are stages of transitioning, that when you're coming near to leaving the body, that knowing that this can happen or this is happening is not only reassuring, but it's a comfort and a source of that calmness, that you see, it's something where I might be repeating myself. We're all going to experience it, So why up to now has there been no real preparation? It's not something you study in school or in college, how to die or how to die well, or maybe people in hospices will get some guidance and some support, but for the ordinary person, that it's avoiding it doesn't make it go away. You're going to experience it, so you might as well learn as much as you can about it. And the more you learn about it, the less fearful you will become. That's just learn all the different before, during, and after death stages.
Where can people get your book?
My book is available from all the major booksellers, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Your local bookshop will order it for you. It's coming out in July next month. So,
okay.
Please pre-order it. Push it up in the bestseller list. Please let me know. Let me know how you find it. This has been put me out. I'm out of my comfort zone a little bit in doing this, but it feels like it's something that I have to do to help shift humanity. For me, it feels like a little nudge in the transformation of human consciousness, that we are all collectively moving from a place of fear to a place of love. And this book, Death You Gotta Love It, is one of the prompts for me and for many of you out there to just nudge yourself into a place of greater love, greater peace, and greater joy.
And what is your website?
My website is tonymchristie.com. You can find me there. You can find a lot more information about all the different things that I do and have been doing. And please, as I said, let me know. Send me an email or follow me on social media, Facebook or Instagram, and just send me a message. Just let me know how you're doing, where you are with death. And if you're looking for a bit of help, just feel free to ask me a question. I may or may not be able to answer it, but I'll do my best.
All right. And you've got another book you've written, Labyrinth, Your Path to Self-Discovery. Just real quick, what is that about?
Yeah. I've been working with the Labyrinth. The Labyrinth found me about 20 years ago, and I've had so much healing and learning myself, walking the Labyrinth, asking for peace or joy or getting insights. So for me, my whole journey for most of the past 20 years with the Labyrinth was to learn about myself, to let go of a lot of the baggage and a lot of the heavier negative thinking that I had, and to move me into a place where I got to know myself. And so the Labyrinth, Your Path to Self-Discovery is a book that takes you from the very beginning of your journey with the Labyrinth, because the Labyrinth is a symbol not only of you, but a symbol of your journey in life. And so I also have a form of healing where when you trace the Labyrinth, I'd hold a divining rod or dowsing rod that moves to tell you where to stop. And at that point is significant for you at that time in your life, and I can interpret it for you. And so the Labyrinth just is a beautiful, very powerful healing tool. It also heals the land. When people put a Labyrinth on the land, it raises the vibration or clears heavier negative energies. So there's the very ancient, powerful symbol that I'm still learning about. And the more I learn about it, the more I realize how little I know about the Labyrinth. So yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful tool. Please go and walk your local Labyrinth.
And there are labyrinths all over.
Yeah, there is a website. There's a worldwide labyrinth locator. So if you're by the state in the US or by country, there's 6,000 or 7,000 labyrinths listed now worldwide on that. So yeah, they're beautiful.
Awesome. And what about these wisdom cards?
Yeah. Well, I was looking how would I share the insights that I gained through the Labyrinth and through my work with the Labyrinth, and the best way that I could think of was through different cards. Let's see, have I got one? Did I pick one? I pick one every day. Look here, today's one is balance. It's about balancing your masculine and feminine energies. So I share one of those, but these are my learnings and my insights that I gained from working with the Labyrinth that I now share with people, and some people find them very accurate and insightful, and I just share one on Instagram and Facebook almost every day. So yeah, feel free to check them out, and comment or let me know if they're relevant for you or not. Yeah.
Some of the labyrinths I've seen remind me of crop circles. Is there a connection, do you think?
No, interestingly, in my book, I have found a seed pattern in a crop circle, where the starting point for drawing and creating a labyrinth, and I've seen one crop circle in the form of a labyrinth. I think there's a consciousness. For me, the labyrinth had to come from a higher level of consciousness at some point. For somebody, whoever drew it the first time or created the first one, or the adaptations that are there, that because they have an energy and a healing energy and a clearing energy, that there is something beneficial for humanity in them. And I think it's the same with the crop circles, except that sometimes the crop circles may take a little bit more interpreting or more figuring out, saying, okay, what is consciousness trying to tell us, or what exactly is the message? Because I think there is a message there. If it's a bit like life, if I'm aware enough to know what that is. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for your insights, Tony. We really appreciate it. I would love to have you come back sometime to talk more about labyrinths and everything else that you're doing. If you'd be interested in doing that.
I would be honored. It would be lovely. And I saw where you made orgonite, and I make some of that, or was making some of that myself as well. I still have a little piece on the back of my cell phone, as you'd call it, So yeah, we have a lot more to I have a lot more to share and talk about. Yeah. So it would be wonderful to come back, Margie.
I can sense it. So hang with me in the green room for a minute as I close out, if you would. Thank you so much, Tony.
Thank you, and thanks everybody for listening, and many blessings. Yeah.
All right, another show down. Join me again next week for another show. I can't even remember what it is right now, but it'll be something good. So I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for joining me.